Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
So you should get to go to presenter.
So your name
Presenter view.
just how I can remember your name.
Then it's okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, it's good there.
Okay.
Don't know what
Yeah,
people
that's
can see.
projecting.
That's projecting okay. You can see the
Yep.
slides.
First
Awesome.
slides up.
Super. Thank you so much for confirming that. I think we're good to go. Well done. That's exactly the sort of stressful stuff.
I wouldn't be able to go through all of it.
Yeah. So it's not a presentation. Well, welcome everyone. Let's make a start. I wonder if you can close the door for me. It's 12:03, so I suspect most people that are going to be here in person are here already. Welcome to another of our SHW Research and Development Skills seminars. Really pleased to have Dr. Filip Sosenko here to talk to us today about surveying small or hard to reach populations, and welcome everyone online as well. I'm going to try and monitor the chat online from my laptop, but I'm going to hand over to Filip just now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for attending. I'm going to first tell you what's going to be in this presentation. So I'll start by saying a few words about myself, and then I will outline challenges with surveying small or hard to reach or hidden populations. I'll then talk a bit about respondent driven sampling. And after that, I'll tell you about a recent methodological project I did for the Office for National Statistics about RDS, Respondent Driven Sampling. And finally, I'll try to answer a question that you may possibly have, which is, could this method be useful to you? So starting with myself, I'm a sociologist by background. I've been doing applied research for the last 17 years and on 100% research track, so I rarely give lectures, but it happens sometimes. For the first 13 years after my PhD, I was doing research mostly on poverty, particularly severe poverty, destitution, homelessness, food banks, and associated phenomena. And the last 4 years, I've been here at Glasgow at the Scottish Learning Disabilities Observatory doing research on people with intellectual disabilities and particularly their health status. So after my PhD, I initially started as a qualitative researcher, and gradually I was doing more and more mixed methods research, and then I completely switched to quantitative research methods. So not a usual path, perhaps. So I'm really a jack of all trades when it comes to research methods. So now I frequently apply statistical methods and techniques, but I'm not a statistician by training. So I'm an applied researcher. I have a strong interest in research methods from my PhD, including my PhD, and particularly survey methods. I've designed a few surveys myself. Yeah, so that's always been kind of at the background of my day-to-day work. And I recently completed that methodological project for the ONS. So that's probably that about myself. Now, about challenges with surveying small or hard to reach populations. So yeah, that may be your case, perhaps. You may have your population of interest may be so-called hard to reach or hidden, and this really boils down to two challenges. One is the people's inability to participate in research and in particular in surveys, or the other problem may be that they may be unwilling to participate. And that's really what the concept of hard to reachness captures, refers to. Or your population may be a small one, and then small and not hard to reach, but small. So the problem here is that although you could do a probabilistic survey, probabilistic sampling, it would cost you a lot of money, because you would be capturing a lot of people who are not in your population. So in order to get a reasonably big sample from your small population, you'd need to commit a lot of resources. So that would be very costly. And then there are combinations. So your population of interest may be both small and hard to reach. And that, you know, throws additional problems for surveying such populations. And a problem may be that you don't have a sampling frame, so you don't have list of everyone in your population, or in the case of it may be that you don't have a list of addresses, because you can reach people through postal addresses as well. But if you don't have their addresses, then you don't have a sampling frame, and you can't do probabilistic sampling. I'll talk a bit more about sampling now, survey sampling. So there is this special case of the census, which is a special survey where you aim to cover 100% everyone in the population. And in purely technical terms, the census is not a survey. So every survey involves sampling, taking a sample of the population. But in practical terms, most people refer to census as a survey. So there is, yeah. But if your survey is not a census and it involves sampling, there are three main kind of categories of survey sampling. One is, the most common one is probabilistic sampling, where every participant has a certain probability, every member of the population has a certain probability of being selected to the survey. So if you have, for example, a list of all household addresses in the UK, you can calculate the probability of a certain address being randomly selected for the survey. So that's why it's called probabilistic sampling, because there is, you know, the probability of each member of the population being included, being selected for the survey. Probabilistic sampling does not guarantee that your sample will be representative. It may be that by chance, say if you're drawing a random sample of postal addresses in the UK, it may be that you have a disproportionately many addresses in Chelsea and Kensington, or at the other end somewhere in really poor areas. So it doesn't guarantee representativeness, but probabilistic sampling allows you to calculate the margin of error or the uncertainty in your estimates. So you should be able to say there is this and this chance that the result of my survey is plus minus 3% percentage points or something like that. So that's what probabilistic sampling allows you to do. And then there is time location sampling, and that's an interesting one. It's used to survey people who use certain services. So for example, if you are interested in people using food banks, then you would try to do your survey at food banks. So that's and at a certain time. So that's why it's called time location sampling. Or if you are interested in people who are street homeless, then pretty much all of them use services such as soup kitchens and night shelters and so on. So you would try to do your survey in those locations where they come to use services or where they congregate, and you choose the time when they use those services. That's why it's called time location sampling. And then the third major type of sampling is non-probabilistic sampling. So, and here there is there are a few kind of subtypes. So one quite commonly used non-probabilistic sampling is used to get online panels where people are invited through adverts and so on to be on the panel, for example, students or young people or older people, and then that panel, that group of people, is used for different surveys. It's usually used by market research companies. Say some kind of commercial company would be interested in their product and the image of their product among young users, so they would pay a market research company to do a survey among their young with their young online panel, and it would be an online survey. Then that would be weighted to the population structure, but it's still not possible to generalize from that sample onto the whole population. In this case, or say all young people in the UK. So it's not representative. Then there is convenience sampling, where the researcher chooses everyone in the sample, and again, it's not possible to generalize results onto the wider population. Then moving on, there is snowball sampling, where the researcher chooses initial participants, initial survey respondents, and then those initial survey respondents are asked to invite their friends and family and so on to the survey. And again, it's not possible to generalize from the sample onto the wider population. And finally, there is respondent driven sampling, where the researcher chooses initial participants, as in the standard snowball sampling, but it is claimed that it's possible to generalize from the sample onto the wider population. Now, a couple of quick words about the biases in snowball sampling. So we have the situation where the researcher chooses a few initial respondents to the survey and asks them to invite friends, and the survey kind of the sampling snowballs in that way. So there are two main problems with snowball sampling. So one is that there may be systematic differences in social network size between two categories of or two or more categories of participants. So imagine that younger people have on average more friends than older people. So what would happen if you just do normal standard snowballing is that at the end of your survey, younger people would most likely be represented in the sample, because there is a higher likelihood of them being invited to the survey. The more friends you have, the higher likelihood of you being invited to the survey. So if young people have larger social networks, they are more likely to be invited, and at the end they would be there would be more of them in the sample than in the general population. So there is one bias like that, and the other bias is due to differences in recruitment efficiency. So, for example, imagine a population that has 50% of males and 50% of females, and female social networks have, on average, one third of males and 2/3 of females. So on average, females have more females in their social networks, and vice versa for males. So say males have on average 2/3 of their networks are males and 1/3 are females. So so there is like like a symmetric structure. But now imagine that you do your snowball survey, and it happens that women are more efficient recruiters. So women recruit more people than men, and maybe women recruit faster than men. So what would happen is that over time, your participants would have, like the sample of your participants would have more and more women versus men, because women are more efficient recruiters than men. So so what would, at the end, your sample would be not representative of the wider population. So these two biases are the most problematic ones in snowball sampling. Now, moving on to respondent-driven sampling. So it's been designed exactly to correct for some of the biases that arise in snowballing. It was invented quite a while ago in 1997 in the US, and it's been quite, well, it's still a niche method, but it's not that uncommon. So far there have been over 1,000 studies using RDS, or respondent-driven sampling. So so it's niche, but it's not that uncommon. And it's been mainly used to survey hard-to-reach populations, for example, jazz musicians, or injecting drug users, men having sex with men, or sex workers, and so on. But there's no, but it can be used to survey any population. It can be used to survey a large population, a non-hidden population. It works the same. But the advantage of snowballing, the inherent kind of strength of snowballing, is that it taps into trust that exists between friends. So if I meet a stranger and I say, you know, I'm a researcher, I would like to invite you to participate in the survey. They don't know me. They are, you know, quite likely to say no, thank you. But if I'm their friend and I say, look, I've done the survey, I've got and it's been quick, I've got £10 for doing it. If you want, here's I mean, the invitation. You know, they are more likely to take up the invitation. So snowballing really exploits this trust that exists between friends. That's why it's been popular among researchers who are interested in populations such as, you know, injecting drug users, because if I start, basically it's the more trust there is between the recruiter and the recruit, the more likely it is that sampling will be successful. And one of the essential requirements is that the population under study is networked. So people in that population either meet or they are in some form of contact. If your population is really isolated, people don't really contact each other, don't bump into each other, then RDS is not the right method for that population. So some networking is essential, and there are a few statistical assumptions that need to be met for RDS to work. I can talk about them a bit later. So what it looks like exactly. So in the data collection stage, first the researcher chooses so-called seed respondents or initial respondents to the survey. And normally it's like between 5 and 15 people. I would find those initial respondents and ask them to do the survey questionnaire. And I would ask them to invite their friends, family, and so on to participate in the survey. And I would give them typically 2 or 3 unique invitation tokens for the people in their network. And there would be 2 rewards, one for completing the survey and one for successfully inviting a friend. So, for example, in my recent RDS surveys, the primary reward was £10 and the secondary reward was £5. So and everyone was given 3 invitation tokens for friends. So you could, by participating, you could make up to £25, £10 for doing the survey, and 3 times £5 for inviting 3 friends to the survey. Typically, well, in the past, RDS used to be before like the internet really became popular. It used to be done on site. So the researcher would set up an office somewhere where the population of interest kind of is present, and people would need to come to the office, do the survey at the office. And they would receive their reward at the office. And well, it was, as you can imagine, it was made the process quite costly, lengthy, and just yeah, not that easy. But gradually, RDS has been done more and more online. There is a term web-based web RDS or web-based RDS. Now, unlike the standard snowballing, RDS surveys collect a few pieces of information that additional pieces of information, so meta information. So one is who recruited whom, and because we use unique identifiers or unique codes for inviting people, then we know that, okay, this person invited that person. And we ask a question about their network size, so we can later correct for the different, for one of the biases that I've mentioned about different network sizes. And those pieces of information are used later in at the data analysis stage to correct for biases. Now, an interesting point about RDS is that it does not aim to produce a representative sample at the sampling stage. So the representativeness is achieved later at the data analysis stage, not at the data sampling, at the sampling or data collections stage. But that's just how it is, and it's that's how it works. Once we've got our RDS data collected, we do data analysis, and we use one of purposefully designed RDS estimators. I'm not going to go into detail here, but I can during questions and answers. This is a field of active research as to which of existing RDS estimators is better than the others, and which one is the best, and can we improve the existing estimators. But there is quite a long history of improvements in RDS estimators. And one interesting thing is that all but one RDS estimators assume that participants recruit from their network at random. And that's one of the statistical assumptions that need to be met for RDS to work. And it's obviously a contentious, there's a question as to how realistic it is, how realistic this assumption is when it comes to real world recruitment. But yeah, like I said, all but one RDS estimators assume that if I've taken part in the survey and I'm inviting 2 or 3 friends, I'm doing it at random from my whole social network. So yeah, does it work? Interestingly, although there have been over 1,000 substantive RDS studies, only 2 studies, there have only been 2 studies of accuracy of RDS estimates, and they've both been inconclusive, really. So so there's a large gap. There's a situation where we have researchers who are keen to use the method, but we don't really know for sure that it works well. The Office for National Statistics have been interested in alternative sampling methods or non-probabilistic sampling methods for some time, and they've kind of become aware of some of my past research and asked me to do a study of accuracy of respondent-driven sampling estimates for them. But before I talk about that project, a few words about smartphone-based RDS. So it goes back to 5-6 years ago. 6 years ago, I was involved in a funded research project, and I developed something that I called smartphone-based RDS for that project, and it's a version of online RDS, so data collection is online, but it's only on smartphones. And kind of what's maybe unusual about it is that people don't need to install any app, which is a real kind of bonus, because that's often like when, if something involves installing an app, the people lose interest and they don't want to participate. And there are 3, just quickly, there are 3 subsystems. So there's one subsystem that sends automatic text messages, for example, welcome to the survey, and here is the link. Here is your reward, and it's a shopping voucher for your supermarket of choice for £10, or so there's like an automated texting system. Then there is a database where we keep people's like valid invitation tokens and who invited whom and so on. And then there is an online survey, which is the most important one, because that's where we collect substantive information from questions that we ask people. It's really smooth and quick and seamless. So suppose I invite someone, a friend, I give them a unique invitation code, for example, ABC99. So there's just 5 characters, nothing long, and they need to text that code to a mobile phone number that I also give them. The moment they text that number from their smartphone, they text that number, they text the code to that number. In about 3 or 4 seconds, they get an automated text saying, welcome to the survey. A little bit, there's just, a little bit about the survey, and then there is a link. So they tap on the link on their smartphone, then the survey opens, the survey questionnaire opens in their web browser on the smartphone. There is obviously a preamble, more about confidentiality and so on. And they take the survey, towards the end of the survey, there's a question, which supermarket do you prefer? And normally there's a list from Aldi to Waitrose, you know, like 8, 9 supermarkets. Then they finish the survey, and within 3 or 4 seconds, they get an automated text with an electronic shopping voucher for that supermarket that they prefer, and another text message with 2 or 3 invitation codes for their friends. If they successfully pass on an invitation code to a friend, the friend does takes the survey. The friend gets a tenner or a shopping voucher worth £10 for their supermarket of choice. And the moment they finish their survey, I get another automated text message with a shopping voucher for £5 for my supermarket of choice. So it's very quick, very seamless. And because it's fully automated, it's really much cheaper than using survey interviewers and just involving people, human researchers. The data collection is also quite fast, usually 1 to 2 months for a sample of, say, 800 people. There are several preventative mechanisms built into this smartphone-based RDS, so people can't reuse their codes and so on. It's all thought through. And because the survey is taken on smartphones, there's also an option of location check. That every smartphone has a GPS location. So if I want to do a survey in Glasgow, I can force, obviously with people's permission, I can make them go through a location check, and then if they're in Glasgow, they are through. If they are not in Glasgow, they are out. They are filtered out, and without me, the researcher, knowing where in Glasgow they are. So all I know is that they are somewhere in Glasgow. Next, so a little bit about that project. So it's been commissioned by the ONS, run for a year and a bit. And the location was York, or York City Council, to be precise. It was smartphone-based, the data collection, and the aim was to compare RDS estimates with the true population profile, and that was taken from Census 2021 for York. So in the RDS survey, we asked about key demographics like age, sex, economic activity, housing tenure, subjective health status, and so on, because we had that information from the census, so we could compare RDS estimates with the true population profile. We managed to get a sample of 800 people. Well, that was our target sample, so we got to the target. And was people aged 16 plus. The paper from the studies is under review now, but I'll show you a link to the preprint at the end. So the interesting thing is that when the most popular RDS estimators were used, most RDS results were not accurate were not accurate enough, by which I mean that they were outside the 95% confidence interval. So here is an example. So age or age band, and first there is the profile from Census 2021, and we can see that there's quite a lot of people aged 16-24. That's because York is a university town, so there's perhaps more people in that age band constitute a higher proportion of all people than in some other places. But we can see that RDS estimates are really off the mark. They are not only, I think, none of them actually is in the 95% confidence interval. So not a result that the ONS would like, really. And that was the case of pretty much all but one. One characteristic we asked about was spot on, and one was within the confidence interval, but all others were off the mark. So the most likely reason for that was that the recruitment was not at random. Like I said, one of the statistical assumptions is that people recruit at random from their network. And here is the example of sex and respondent sex. We asked people, what proportion of your friends are. So we asked male respondents, what proportion of your network are males, and what vice versa for females. And we can see that the proportion, that the kind of composition of respondents' social network with regards to sex was quite similar between males and females. So based on that, we would expect that female respondents would recruit a similar proportion of females as male respondents would recruit, and male respondents would recruit a similar proportion of male respondents from their networks. But we had something very different. So you can see among male recruits, male respondents recruited 33% of males and 67% of females. So males recruited mostly females by a large margin, whereas females. For males, the main sex that they recruited was females, whereas for females, the sex that they mostly recruited was females. So there was clearly no. It clearly was not random how they were recruiting follow-ups. But having said that, the one RDS estimator that does not assume random recruitment was much more accurate. So that's a positive finding in the study, and something that the ONS, were happy with. However, we need more evidence that, more systematic evidence, some more methodological research showing that it really is, it's not just better than those other estimators. It needs to be good, not just because it can be a bit better, but still not good. So we need more evidence to be certain. And it also brings a few challenges that other estimators do not have. So the main one is that we need to ask the respondents about the composition of their network. So for example, if we're interested in breakdown or population structure by sex, we need to ask respondents first, what's your sex? And then we need to ask what proportion of your network are males, what proportion are of this in this age band, and so on. That makes the survey questionnaire longer, which is never great. But but the bigger problem, perhaps, than the length of the questionnaire is that it's tricky when it comes to invisible or stigmatized characteristics, because respondents may not have accurate knowledge what proportion of their social network, for example, are in heavy debt or are HIV positive, and so on, because those things are either both invisible and stigmatized. So nobody shouts from the rooftops that they are in heavy debt, and then, which means that if we ask people what proportion of your friends are in heavy debt, they may not know at all, or they may give us an inaccurate response. So that's not not really good for when it comes to using that one estimators. So the study's conclusions really were that RDS estimates can be accurate, but only when using specific one RDS estimators. Other ones were not accurate, did not provide accurate estimates, and it really went down to the requirement of random recruitment. It's in practice, it can't be. It's not recruitment in real world is not random. If one decides to conduct an RDS survey and use that one particular estimate that worked well in our study, it would needs to be remembered that this is particularly suitable for researching either visible or non-stigmatized. Sorry, there's a spelling mistake. Non-stigmatized traits, and we need more evidence. I would like to do another, like a follow-up study similar to the York one that really just tests that one specific estimator. Could RDS be useful to you? So I think that yes, but there are a few conditions. So one is that your population of interest is networked. The other one is that your population of interest is not predominantly working age, so say under 65, and that's because we found out that older age groups, particularly 75 plus, they weren't keen to take part in the survey. I don't know whether it's to do with it being requiring some just it being on smartphones, and maybe people not being that keen on technology, like elderly people not being that keen on technology. But I would say if quite a chunk of your population of interest is aged 65 plus, then RDS is probably not the best method. Also, it could be useful to you if you are interested, if you are researching visible or non-stigmatized traits. And obviously there's a question of budget. So I would say a survey of about 800 people would cost about 25,000 all inclusive. So that's including participant rewards, researchers' time, IT infrastructure, and so on. But probably the survey would need to be quite short, because the longer the survey, the more data analysis is involved, and the longer everything takes for the more research time is needed. So that's it. There's my email address, and if you would like to see the preprint of the paper, there's both the URL and the QR code. 45 minutes, not too bad. We have a few minutes for questions. I'll stop sharing. Oh, sorry, that's this one.
I'm going to invite questions from the room first, and then I'll come online. So online, please feel free to have a think. We're already getting comments about the great presentation, so thank you very much.
I'm just trying to see how to go back to, like, so that maybe people who are online can see the room, or I don't know if
I think that might be a bridge too far for us just now.
Yeah, so we'll just we know Jill is there.
This is what we've got, yeah. So I mean, I guess I'll maybe just kick things off, if that's all right. But really interesting that I'm not a method I'm familiar with. My sense is that it's pitched as something which could potentially create a more representative sample than snowball approaches.
Yes.
but you found that wasn't really the case?
Yeah, so it's really it really tries to build a gap in or provide to bring evidence on populations that are really underrepresented in the data kind of world. So yeah, maybe, but so populations that are small or hard to reach, typically there is quite a lot of anecdotal evidence. There's qualitative evidence, but not really robust statistical profiles of them. And so researchers have been battling with this problem for a long time, and by now it looks like RDS is the most promising kind of method to overcome the problem of achieving statistically robust profiles. But yes, it's the kind of the results of my study for the ONS are really kind of mixed. So on the one hand, what the study has shown is that you shouldn't really, first of all, you shouldn't, plan to do your RDS study as it's been done in the past using one of the main RDS estimators, because it doesn't work well in practice. It's also bad news for people who, for those 1,000, studies that have already been done, because the vast majority of them used one of the main RDS estimators. So really, what my study has shown is that we can't rely on those results from those 1,000 studies, which is not. I'm the last person who would like to bring that news to people who did those studies in the past, but it is what it is. But on the other hand, there is some promising news, which is that there is one estimator that performs better than those other ones. It does not rely on the random recruitment assumption. It carries entails a few problems of its own, but they can be dealt with. So what I'm saying, ideally I would do another study like the one in York, and I would use only that one estimator that looks promising, and and after that we would be on stronger ground to be able to say, yes, this is something that can be used seriously to produce reliable stats, or maybe maybe not, maybe it's like a end of the road. But I'm pretty convinced that that one estimator has a future.
Do you know if ONS share your?
So they are now kind of chewing over the results, and they are. I haven't heard from them regarding a follow-up, but I would not be surprised if they wanted to continue, because their problem is that there's more currently in the last few years there has been more pressure from policymakers and politicians on the ONS to fill data gaps with regards to some populations like gypsies and travelers and so on, and populations that either have been unwilling to take part in surveys or have found it difficult to take part in surveys. So, for example, people living on boats, they are not normally. You don't get a survey interviewer from the ONS coming to interview people on barges and boats. So there's little data about them, and without data, it's hard to make robust policies, social policies. So that's one reason why DNS are more interested in filling those data gaps. And the other problem that they face is that the general population are less and less willing to take part in surveys, and in some cases it drops below 50%. So if you have a lot of non-response, your estimates are not really reliable, because if there are systematic differences between people who refuse to participate and those who agree to participate, then the picture from those who agree to participate is not representative of the whole population. So and like I said, things like RDS can be used to study big populations and general households and so on. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of point in time in research on non-probabilistic sampling methods. Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions from?
Possibly topical, because our future health released their cohort profile yesterday. How would you compare RDS, your methodology, to the way UK Biobank and Alpha making an emphasis of but when you look at their figures, they're probably less accurate than your.
I'm not that kind of familiar with the way that sampling is done for the UK Biobank and the other one that you've mentioned. But normally what happens is that small or hard to reach groups are purposefully oversampled in larger kind of national surveys, and that oversampling is then taken into account at the data analysis stage. So you would try to get a larger number, say, of a specific ethnic minority group, but then you would kind of correct for it at the data analysis stage, so that it doesn't look like that particular ethnic group is constitutes a bigger chunk of the overall population than it actually does. I mean, ethnicity. I mean, if you have the money to do like a big, survey with a big sample, and you have a reasonable grounds to think that people are, from a specific group or subpopulation, there are no systematic barriers for them to take part in your survey, then yes, that's what I would do. So RDS is really most suitable for situations where your budget is smaller, or the kind of big survey would not work because people because the group of interest is either too small or too unwilling to take part, or they can't, that there are some barriers to them taking part. Yeah.
But online, Philip, Ben, when you ask respondents about the characteristics of people they have then invited, you ask them for those characteristics aggregate. Are most of the people you've invited male, or at an individual level?
Other group of people they have. No, so I know the character. So because I have like meta information about the survey, so I know who invited whom. So I don't need to kind of ask respondents or who you've invited, or who invited you, because that information I already have from metadata. So if with that one RDS estimator that does not assume random recruitment, I ask people about the composition of their social network. So the idea really is that, and it's very simple, but it's really kind of clever at the same time. So suppose that the composition of my social network is 60% males and 40% females. If I recruit at random, there is a 0.6 probability of me recruiting a male and 0.4 probability of me recruiting a female, if that's completely random. So the idea behind this one specific estimator is that instead of relying on me doing random recruitment, it may be easier and more accurate to actually ask me, you know, what proportion of your network are males and what proportion of my network are females. So if I was asked this question, I would say, okay, more or less 0.6. The proportion of my network is 0.6 males and 0.4 females, which are the same, exactly the same numbers or figures as if I recruited randomly, because if I recruited randomly, there would be 0.6 probability of me recruiting a male and 0.4 of me recruiting a female. So the information I provided about the composition of my network works as a substitute for me doing random recruitment. So it's really, there's no need for me to ask, you know, about characteristics of people who have actually been recruited or who recruit, you know, I don't need to ask a respondent, you know, were you recruited by a male or female, because I know that from metadata, because they all have unique identifiers and it's all in my data set. So I know that, okay, this Peter was recruited by John and so on. So yeah, that answers. Yeah, so it's the individual level kind of question. So I'm asking people, respondents, what's the composition of your social network? Not, I don't ask, you know, among your male friends, you know, what's the composition? So I ask specifically a specific respondent.
That's great, really helpful. Of course, it depends on how accurate people are at
Yes.
estimating the composition.
Yes, exactly. So there is that, but still, you know, it's better to have a small, it's better to have a small error on network composition questions than a big error on you know, if randomness is really, if recruitment is really way not random, it's better to ask a network composition question and get a smaller error on that. Like overall, we'd be better off. Our estimates would be better. Plus, typically, you know, individual errors at the individual level cancel each other out. So I would maybe underestimate the proportion of males in my network, but another person would overestimate, and those two would cancel each other. So that's so the mean from like all respondents would be accurate.
Brilliant. That's 1 o'clock, or just after. Would you be thanking Filip for
Thank you.
the presentation? Anything to come on?
I may save the chat. It's being recorded.
Is that a lot of people do?
Thank you.
This is probably better than.
Yeah.
The other thing is how much has been done longitudinally of.
Yeah.
Sorry, someone has posted in the chat the name of the sorry, you said Our Future Health.
That was me.
Yeah,
I was just-
I'll have a look. I'll have a look at that because
It's, well, it's UK Biobank and Our Future Health have very controversial. They've just gone getting a massive sample size and then
yeah.
I think there might be a better way of using their money.